The ship crash wasn't supposed to happen. Eli opened his eyes slowly. His head throbbed. He was a human engineer, just a simple technician working on a supply vessel that wandered too close to alien space. The crew was gone. He was the only survivor. And now, he was a prisoner. Chains bound his wrists. 2 guards with glowing armor dragged him through silver corridors. Their skin was gray-blue, their eyes glowing like soft moonlight. They said nothing as they pulled him into a massive chamber. The room was filled with tall, elegant aliens wearing royal robes. In the center, a golden throne shimmered, and sitting on it was the Emperor of the Virelian Empire. Cold, powerful, and angry. A voice echoed through the room. "This human broke into our borders. He is not worth a cell. Shall I feed him to the beasts?" Laughter filled the hall, but one voice didn't laugh. A quiet voice. A female voice. "Give him to me." Everyone turned. Standing to the side was a young alien woman, her head lowered, her silver hair falling across her face. She wore no crown. No guards stood by her side. She looked forgotten, unimportant. It was Princess Virelia, the Emperor's youngest daughter. The one no one respected. The Emperor raised an eyebrow. "You want this on a creature?" She nodded once. "I do." He laughed bitterly. "Fine, take him. He is yours. A gift for the infertile one. At least now you'll have someone to talk to." The crowd laughed again, mocking her, but Virelia didn't react. She simply stepped forward and took Eli's arm gently. Her skin was cold. Her grip was soft. "Come," she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Eli didn't understand her words, but he felt something in her voice. Kindness, pain, something human. They walked through long palace corridors. Eli's legs were weak, his mind still spinning. He was surrounded by a strange world. Walls that glowed, floating candles, guards that watched him like a wild beast. Virelia led him into a small room at the back of the palace. It didn't look like a princess's room. No gold, no servants. Just simple furniture, a bed, a small table, books. "You will stay here," she said softly, in broken English. Eli sat on the floor, his hands still shaking. Why did you ask for me?" he finally whispered. She looked at him for a long moment. "I don't know." Hours passed. She brought him food, simple fruits and warm bread. She sat across the room, watching him silently. He noticed her eyes were always sad, always tired. "I'm not like them," she said later that night. "I don't matter. I cannot give children, so they don't care what I do." Eli didn't know what to say. He finally spoke. "Thank you for saving me." She looked surprised. "No one has ever thanked me before." That night Eli couldn't sleep. He kept thinking. Why did she really save him? What was this place? What did she mean about not being able to give children? And why did she look so lonely? Something inside him stirred. Not fear, not hate. Something deeper. Maybe she wasn't his captor. Maybe she was a prisoner too. Eli had lived with aliens for 5 days now, but none of them treated him like a person, except Virelia. Every morning she entered his room quietly. She placed food on the table. She never smiled, but she always asked, "Did you sleep well?" Her English was rough, but it was improving. Eli tried to answer in simple words. Still, they mostly sat in silence. Until one night, something changed. The moon above the alien palace turned red. Outside, a royal feast echoed with laughter and loud music, but Virelia didn't go. Instead, she stood by Eli's door and whispered, "Come with me." Eli followed her through dark stone halls beneath the palace. The guards didn't stop her. No one cared where the broken princess went. She opened a metal door, and they stepped inside a cold, secret chamber. What Eli saw shocked him. It was a lab, filled with tools, machines, and glowing screens. Medical reports floated in the air. DNA maps, healing chambers, ancient tablets mixed with alien tech. It didn't belong to a princess. It looked like a scientist's lair. Virelia walked to a machine and turned it on. A blue light bathed her face. "I'm not just broken," she said. "I tried to fix myself." She tapped a hologram. A 3D image of her DNA rotated mid-air. Eli stared at it. "I've studied every healer, every scan, every myth. They say I am cursed. They say my womb is dead, but I think they're wrong. I think they're scared." Eli stepped closer. "You built this all yourself?" She nodded. "No one helped. No one cared. I had to teach myself. I want to be more than a sad daughter in the shadows." He looked at the DNA again. Something caught his eye. "What is this pattern?" he asked. She turned sharply. You saw that?" Eli pointed at a strange lock-like structure in her jeans. "That shouldn't be there. It looks like a blocker. Something artificial." Virelia stared at him. "You see it too." They worked together that night, side by side. Virelia showed him test results. Eli shared what he knew about human biology. Though their worlds were different, their minds connected like two puzzle pieces. Hours passed like minutes. For the first time, Virelia laughed. A soft, shy laugh. "You're smarter than you look." Eli smiled. "You're kinder than you act," she blinked, surprised. "No one says that to me." But outside that hidden lab, danger was growing. Virelia's older sister, Princess Ayla, had seen them walking the halls together. She didn't like it. She believed her bloodline was pure, powerful. She hated humans. And more than that, she hated Virelia for still existing. She reported to the royal guards. "The broken one plots with the human," she hissed. "They're planning something. Stop them." Back in the lab, Virelia sat on the floor, her voice trembling. "If what you said is true, if my genes are not broken, just blocked, then maybe I can still—" Eli finished the sentence. "Have a child." Her face froze. "Yes, but they will never allow that." "Why?" he asked. "Because if I can give life, I'm no longer useless. I'm a threat." She looked at him deeply. "They gave me a gift they thought I would never use. A human. But what if the human is the key to my future?" It had been 12 days since the human Eli was gifted to the forgotten alien Princess Virelia. But what began as punishment had now become something dangerous, something powerful. In the hidden lab beneath the palace, Virelia sat beside Eli with her hands trembling. She had unlocked a part of her DNA, a strange block placed there long ago. But by whom? And why? "Look at this," Eli whispered. He pointed at the screen. "These markers, this code, it's not natural. Someone changed you." Virelia's hands clenched. "You mean I was made to be infertile?" Eli nodded. "Yes, this isn't a sickness, it's a lock. And you were the prisoner." Virelia backed away from the screen, shaking. Her voice broke. "My own bloodline betrayed me." Eli stood up slowly. "Why would they do that?" She stared at the ceiling. "Because I was born under the wrong star. My birth sign, it predicted I would bring change. The high priests called it a cursed omen. The king feared it. So, he made sure I could never rise." Her voice dropped. "He cursed his own daughter." That night, Virelia and Eli worked for hours. Her medical machines, her knowledge, and Eli's human tech skills joined perfectly. By midnight, Eli crafted a tiny injector filled with nanobots, half alien, half human code. It was risky, dangerous, but it could remove the lock in her body. You sure?" Eli asked. Virelia nodded once. "For the first time in my life, I want to live my truth." He injected it into her arm. Nothing happened. Then, she screamed. Her body shook. Energy lit her veins in gold. Her heart raced. Her eyes turned brighter than the moon's. Then everything went dark. She woke up 2 hours later, lying on a warm table. Eli sat beside her, watching. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She looked at him and smiled. "I feel complete." but trouble was near. Princess Ayla had sent spies. One of the guards placed a tracker on Virelia's robes. The Emperor's soldiers knew of the humans' involvement. They didn't care about love. They cared about control. And now, they were coming. 2 days later, Virelia and Eli met under the starlit garden on the palace roof. "I've been dreaming," she whispered, "of a future where I am free, where I am not a burden, where I am a mother." Eli turned to her. "You deserve that future." They held hands. A soft wind passed between them. And then, without warning, Virelia leaned in. Her lips touched. When that night the stars above seemed to shine brighter, but in the shadows below the royal guards watched. They had seen everything. The silence in the royal chamber was thick like smoke. 2 guards stood at the door, not moving, not speaking. Princess Virelia was summoned, and this time, Eli was brought in chains. They were forced to kneel before the throne. The emperor of the Virelian Empire stood tall, his face colder than space itself. The golden room was full of nobles, priests, and royal family members. Princess Ayla, Virelia's older sister, smiled with poison in her eyes. "Do you deny it?" the king's voice thundered. Virelia stood slowly, her chin raised. Her eyes were not afraid anymore. "I do not," the king's voice cracked with fury. "You let the human touch you?" A gasp ran through the room. Eli looked at Virelia, but she did not blink. She answered clearly, "Yes, I chose him." The room exploded with shouting. Some nobles screamed, some priests cursed. A few stared in silence, unsure what to believe, but the king raised his hand and all fell quiet. "You are my daughter," he growled. "You carry royal blood, and yet you open yourself to a filthy outsider?" "He is more noble than all your courtiers," she replied. The king turned toward Eli. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a blade. "I should crush you like an insect." Eli raised his head. "You already tried when you gave me to her, but instead of dying, I found purpose." The king's eyes widened in rage. He raised his hand for the execution signal, and then Virelia shouted, "I'm pregnant!" World stopped. No one moved. Even the air froze. The king's hand lowered slowly. "What did you say?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, her voice trembling but clear. "And it is his child." Another wave of gasps rippled through the room. A priest fell to his knees. Princess Ayla took a step back, her face pale. The king stared at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. "Impossible," he whispered. "You are barren. You were born cursed." "No," she said. "You cursed me, but I broke your chains." The king's body shook. His lips curled. "This cannot be allowed." But one of the ancient priests stepped forward, old and slow. He bowed before Virelia. "There was a prophecy," he said. "A union between stars and earth. A child of 2 worlds would bring change." The king growled. "That prophecy was forbidden." The priest raised his head. "Yet here she stands, carrying the heir of 2 galaxies." Eli looked at Virelia. She was shaking slightly, but she squeezed his hand. She whispered, "Whatever happens, I'm not afraid anymore." The king stared at the couple for a long, dark moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out. But outside the throne room, his rage boiled like fire. He called his shadow guard, his private assassins, and he gave a secret command. "Before that child is born, make sure neither of them survives the night." Eli sat near Virelia, holding her hand. She hadn't spoken much since her father stormed out of the throne room. Her body trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling. "He will come for us," she whispered. "He cannot let us live." Eli tightened his grip. "Then we run." She shook her head slowly. "There's nowhere to go. Not on this planet. Not while he rules." A moment of silence passed between them. Then a sound broke it. Click, click, click. Footsteps outside the chamber. Too soft for soldiers. Too smooth for servants. Virelia's breath caught in her throat. "They're here." Eli jumped to his feet. The doors burst open, but instead of guards, a dagger flew straight at his face. He ducked just in time. The blade missed by inches and hit the wall behind. 3 masked assassins stepped inside. Their eyes were cold and empty. "You should not exist," one said in a low, raspy voice. "The king sends his farewell." Eli grabbed a broken metal rod from the table. No weapons, no training, just raw instinct. Virelia stood behind him, her hands glowing faintly. "If we die tonight, we die as one." The first assassin rushed forward. Eli blocked the strike, but the rod snapped in half. Pain shot through his arm. He dodged a second blow and pushed back hard. He wasn't strong, but he was desperate. The second assassin reached for Virelia, but suddenly a burst of energy exploded from her hands. A shockwave knocked him into the wall. Even Eli was stunned. "You can do that?" "I didn't know," she breathed, shaking. "Until now." The fight turned brutal. Eli managed to knock one down, but he took a deep cut on his side. Blood dripped fast. Virelia's powers flared again, but she was weakening. Just when the third assassin raised a blade to her throat, a blaster shot rang out. The assassin dropped. Eli turned. It was Princess Ayla. She stood at the doorway, breathing heavily, a weapon in hand. Virelia gasped. "Why? Would you help us?" Ayla sneered. "Don't misunderstand me, little sister. I still hate you, but killing a pregnant royal heir, that would destroy our empire. I may be cruel, but I'm not a fool." Guards rushed in behind her. The dead assassins were dragged away. Eli fell to his knees. Blood covered his side. Virelia dropped beside him, crying. "He's bleeding too fast." Ayla walked away without another word. That night the palace shook not from battle, but from fear. Everyone knew the king had crossed a line. Killing an heir was a crime even the gods couldn't forgive. The court whispered. The high priests murmured. The people outside chanted. And far away in the king's chamber, the old ruler stared at his reflection. He had tried to erase a child, but instead, he had created a legend. Eli lay on the healer's bed. His side was wrapped in glowing bandages. Every breath hurt, but he was alive, and so was the baby. Princess Virelia sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. Her fingers trembled, her eyes red from crying. She hadn't slept since the attack. "You almost died," she whispered. Eli gave her a small smile. "But I didn't." Outside, the palace was on edge. Guards patrolled every hallway. Nobles avoided eye contact. The word was spreading. The king tried to kill the heir, but no one said it out loud. Not yet. In the shadows of the palace, fear was growing. And so was something else. Loyalty. More and more royal staff began showing quiet support to Virelia. Food was delivered with extra care. A healer gave her a protective charm. An old guard whispered, "You will be our queen soon." But not. Everyone wanted that. That night the king summoned his inner council. "Plan A failed," he hissed. "They live. Now the people whisper. If I act again, the empire may rise against me." One of the shadow priests stepped forward. His face was covered in ink tattoos. "There is another way." He held up a small crystal vial. Inside it swirled a dark red liquid. "Give this to the human. Quietly. He will sleep and never wake." The king took the vial with shaking fingers. "Do it." Meanwhile, Virelia stood alone in the moonlight garden. She looked up at the stars, hands resting on her stomach. She whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore. A curse? A queen? A rebel?" Behind her, Eli slowly approached. "You're all of that," he said. "And more." She turned. "You should be resting." "I couldn't sleep. Not without seeing you." They stood in silence. Then she said something she never thought she would say. "I love you, Eli." Eli's breath caught. He stepped forward, touching her face. "I love you too." But someone else stood hidden behind the flowers, watching, the royal cook. She held the poison vial in her pocket. She had her orders. Later that night, Virelia helped Eli into bed. He winced as he lay down. She smiled. "I'll get your tea. It helps with pain." She walked toward the kitchen, not knowing what waited there. Inside the kitchen, the cook had already poured the poison into a warm teacup. But her hands shook. Her conscience screamed. "This isn't right," she whispered to herself. Footsteps approached. Virelia entered, reaching for the tray. Suddenly, the cook dropped to her knees. I can't do it." Virelia froze. "What?" The cook burst into tears. "The tea, don't give it to him. It's death." Moments later, alarms rang through the palace. The king's plan had failed, again. But this time, the people heard everything. By morning, a crowd gathered outside the palace walls. Thousands of voices rose as one. "Protect the mother! Long live the heir!" Inside, the king sat alone, his hands shaking. He had tried poison, shadows, silence, and still, the human lived, and now said the people wanted him as father of the future king. The royal palace was no longer silent. Crowds had gathered outside the gates. Alien nobles, working-class citizens, even royal guards, all shouting one name, "Virelia! Virelia! Long live the queen!" Inside, tension filled the air like fire. The news had spread far across the stars. The infertile princess is pregnant with a hybrid heir. The king tried to kill them, twice, and failed. Virelia stood in her private chamber, looking into the mirror. She was no longer just a princess, no longer a forgotten daughter. Her hands gently touched her belly. She was carrying the future. Behind her, Eli adjusted his clean robe. His wounds had healed, but his eyes still showed the weight of everything they had survived. "They're ready," he said. "The people are waiting." Virelia turned slowly. "So is he." The king stood alone in the throne room. No guards, no servants. He had ordered them all to leave. His hands trembled as he held the crown. It no longer felt like power. It felt like a curse. When the grand doors opened, he expected an army. Instead, it was just her. Virelia entered with Eli by her side, wearing robes of white and gold. Her voice echoed across the silent chamber. "I'm not here for revenge." The king looked up. "Then why are you here?" She stepped forward. "To end this. Not with blood, but with truth." Eli stepped ahead and opened a crystal orb. From it, a projection appeared, recordings of everything. The king's command to the assassins, the poison given to the cook, his own words, "Make sure neither of them survives the night." The projection flickered out. The doors behind them opened again. The high priests entered. The court followed, the royal guards, the nobles, and finally, the people. They had all heard the recordings. There was no more hiding. The king dropped the bowl. Crown. It hit the marble floor with a heavy clang. "I was afraid," he said quietly. "Afraid she would rise above me. Afraid the people would love her more than me." He looked at his daughter. "And they do." Virelia stepped forward and picked up the crown. But instead of placing it on her own head, she held it out to the people. "I do not rule because I was born royal. I stand here because I chose love over fear, life over control." She turned to Eli. "And this human who was sent to me as a gift gave me the greatest gift of all, hope." The crowd roared. The priests raised their hands. "By the law of the stars," one said, "a new queen rises." The guards bowed. The nobles knelt. Even the king fell to his knees. Days later, a great celebration echoed across the empire. Aliens and humans stood side by side. For the first time in history, two species united by blood and love. Eli and Virelia stood on the highest balcony, hand in hand. Below them, the people chanted for their unborn heir, the child who would carry both worlds in their veins. As the twin suns rose, Virelia looked at Eli. "Do you think we're ready for this?" He smiled. "We were born ready."